So hi everyone, I'm Lyndsey and I'm also joined by Tom today. We're just going to run an awareness session around bowel polyps. So just to start off, what actually are they? So essentially they are small growths and they can occur on the lining of the intestine or also in the rectum. So it's very common and around 1 in 4 people can get this at some point in their lives. But they are more common in men, but also can occur in women and are most common in people over the age of 60. So what are the symptoms? So unfortunately, they don't actually usually cause any symptoms. So most people that have them don't actually know that they have them. But they can be picked up in certain screening, such as those for bowel cancer. But if the polyps are large, they can cause like a small amount of like slime, so like a mucus or some blood in your poo. So this is also known as rectal bleeding. You may also find diarrhea or constipation or some kind of abdominal pain. So do look out for that. But again, a lot of time it doesn't get picked up unless you kind of go to these screenings. So what are the risks of getting bowel cancer if you have polyps? So polyps don't usually turn into cancer, but there are some types of polyps which, if are not removed, they can become cancerous. So it's also always worth getting these checked out. A lot of the time they will remove these anyway. So doctors believe that most bowel cancers develop from adoma polyps, so a special type of polyps. But as I said, very few polyps will turn into cancer, and it will take a long time for this to happen. So you do have a kind of time to get these checked out. And like I said, doctors will always say that you can get these polyps treated and removed just to reduce that risk anyway. So what are the causes of bowel polyps and how can you be diagnosed, Tom?
Thanks, Lyndsey. So doctors don't actually know the exact cause of how you actually get bowel polyps, but there are a few more likely ways to develop it if you're a member of or if a member of your family has had it before or is or has had bowel cancer before, whether you have a condition or not which affects your gut, colitis or Crohn's disease, and whether you are overweight or you do smoke as well. But it is usually found when your bowel is being looked at, as you mentioned before, during the bowel screening for cancer.
What is the treatment for this?
So treatment, it sounds a lot worse than it is, I promise. But they usually involve essentially what's called a colonoscopy, which is where they use a wired loop which goes in and essentially it's a camera essentially, and they use that to attach onto the polyps, and they use a small electrical current which passes through it, and it essentially cauterizes, which basically means to burn off or sear the polyps, and they're completely painless, as I mentioned. They sound a lot worse than they are, but they really are very effective. It's got more treatment options here. So obviously in rare cases, polyps might need to be surgically removed, which is a little bit more complicated. But this is usually only done if the polyps have some form of cell changes, or they're particularly large. So after the polyps have been removed, they'll usually get sent to a specialist in a lab, and they will essentially test that polyp and inform your consultant if any of them are sort of cancerous, whether they have a risk of regrowing, and if they are obviously cancerous, there's a cancerous change, should I say, in the polyp, you will obviously potentially need further treatment depending on how bad that is, and then the treatment options for that accordingly are usually that of the same kind of approach that most cancers have with chemotherapy, radiotherapy, etc.
So there's obviously a lot of evidence around the treatment and kind of prevention measures for polyps and also other cancers. So tell us a bit about these, Tom.
Yeah, so preventing most things are very, very similar, as we mentioned in a few of the other videos as well. Diet is one of the biggest things that you can do, and it really kind of improves the gut health. So improving the diet, our genetic factors are obviously probably the most important. The effects of the diet are very, very good. So fruits and vegetables, eating more red, green coloured fruits, peppers, oranges, strawberries, all those kind of things usually contain antioxidants, and those kind of nutrients are really, really good for reducing your risk and preventing this kind of stuff. So really, really easy to answer this question is increase your fruit and vegetable intake. And there is obviously an increasing amount of medical data that people who eat these foods in generous amounts are really kind of having less colon cancer and less, they're preventing everything else that's happening and that could occur. Got more prevention here as well, so meats and saturated fats, any forms of saturates such as ice cream, pastries, sauces, that kind of stuff. We've also got fibre, so there's lots of studies that do show that increasing fibre or having a fibre-rich diet will reduce colon cancer. They did a study in, as it says there, in the 1960s to 70s of rural Africans, and it essentially showed that with an increase in fibre, it decreased the risk of colon cancer. So essentially, increase your fibre, your vitamins, minerals, meats, fruit and vegetables, and some forms of meats and saturates as well. And obviously, this risk may depend on how the meat is prepared. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if you deep fry a steak, it's going to make you healthier. But a reduced meat and saturated fat diet will contribute to a decrease in colon cancer and really increase your colon health. That is it.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Tom. And once again, if anyone's got any questions, just let us know and we're happy to help.